Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nick. In today's video, I'm going to talk about our girl Louise and how she got a nub tail. Alright guys, so I've had Louise for almost 3 years now. Whoop. And I got her when she was very, very tiny. And we had her, and I think I had her for probably like 2 or 3 months. And I noticed that on the end of her tail, and I don't think I have any pictures of it unfortunately, and I don't have any geckos suffering from it currently, thankfully. So I don't have a way of showing it. I might find a picture online and kind of insert it. But the end of her tail was starting to rot, and it's called tail rot. Now, how it started in her case was I was being careless. I went to shut her tank door, and I caught the end of her tail. Now that can happen. We're all human, you know, we all make mistakes, you know, things happen, and I should have been paying more attention, but I wasn't. And I closed it, I closed it pretty good, and it kind of like left a indentation. You know, you can kind of see exactly where the door was shut on it. Now, surprisingly, she didn't drop her tail, which was a little strange, I thought. I figured that when you slam the door on a gecko's tail, at that time I was like, oh, of course they're gonna drop their tail. But she didn't. She was definitely panicked, freaked out. I left her alone. She wasn't bleeding or anything like that. So then I kept watching it, and I noticed that it started to die at the end. Okay, and at this time I didn't really know a whole lot about these guys. And so I was like kind of Googling, researching, watching YouTube videos, and I was kind of under the impression that it was just gonna fall off. But what can happen is the tail will turn necrotic, and it'll start to rot toward the body, and then that can eventually get in her bloodstream, and it can cause a like a blood infection or disease that would have, you know, killed her. So I decided to make a vet appointment just to have her, you know, checked out and just to see if we can save the tail. We gotta drop the tail. Whatever happens, happens. It's not the end of the world to me. So I remember I went to the vet, and I told them, I said, if you have to, just drop the tail, because I don't really, my crested geckos having their tails, I would prefer them to, but if they don't, it doesn't really bother me because it's just a tail. I more so like the patterning and, you know, everything else that goes on with them. Tails are cool though, but they were trying really hard. They didn't want to drop the tail. They were like, well, we think we can treat it. So what ended up happening is I ended up having to give her injections. I think I had to give her like a total of like 8 injections to help fight off the bacteria. And it honestly worked really well and good enough to where, so there's her little nub tail. But I mean, it worked out and it fell off perfectly. But I do see a lot of people posting like, oh, what's happening? Is this tail rot? What is this? If your gecko's tail is not looking normal, then yes, there's issues happening and they need to be addressed. So what I would recommend, and I have done it in other scenarios, is I did one time I forced 1 or 2 tail drops, and honestly that was stupid of me because I did it because of floppy tail syndrome, when I thought floppy tail syndrome could hurt their hips, and then you slowly learn that it's just aesthetics. So I forced a tail drop on that, and I can tell you that forcing tail drops, while there are cases where it is absolutely necessary, it does suck because it freaks the gecko out. And the gecko, typically, if you've developed a good enough relationship with your gecko, they don't understand what you're doing, so they may not drop their tail immediately. Some of my geckos, I hold them, and they really don't. If I were to just act like I'm attacking them, I don't think that it'd really freak them out too much because they know that it's me and I'm the one who takes care of them to an extent. So some of the tails are harder to drop than others. So, and that's why, you know, if you have a gecko whose tail is rotting, you need to either force a tail drop or you need to go to the vet and see if you can't save the tail, like I was lucky enough to do. I haven't heard of many people who have been able to save the tail. And honestly, you know, I had to give her 8 shots. So there was a lot of stress involved with that with her, and she was very young. And in hindsight, I don't know if I had a gecko who got tail rot today, I don't know if I'd choose that same path. I just chose that path with her because she was the only one we had, or no, she was one of like 2 or 3 we had at the time. But for me, it was like more important to, I thought I was doing the right thing by giving her the shots and everything, and who knows, you know, I probably was, but either way, there is stress added to that. So anytime your gecko is sick or anything is happening, there is stress added regardless. So it's better to address the situation in one of the ways, you know, typically I always recommend going to a vet. If you have a good reptile vet in your area, go to it. If you don't, you know, ask questions to breeders, ask questions to smart people, you know, post in the groups and on Facebook, you know, ask people questions, because there's a lot of people who know a lot of good stuff. So anytime that does happen, just, you know, always use all your resources that you can use. But yeah, I mean, the shots went good with her, and now she just has a nub tail. She still uses her tail. She has no issues with her tail. As you can see, she is a hefty girl. She eats good. I mean, none of it affected her in any way in her life. I wanted to save the end of her tail, and we did a good job of it. So, you know, don't feel bad if you mess up and you accidentally shut a door on your gecko's tail or something like that. Don't feel terrible. You know, we're human. We're gonna make mistakes. It's how you react to them. So, you know, just do the best you can. Don't beat yourself up. If your gecko has tail rot, go ahead and take care of that. But yeah, that's the story on Louise. Proud mama to a ton of our babies. But until next time, guys, stay safe and stay positive.